see, what issues are you currently seeing that are most prevalent right now in the US?
There are so many. There are the crises of democracy, the polarization, the deep divisions and clashes, the escalated rhetoric that are undermining the unity of democratic citizens. There's the extremes of inequality that have built up over the last 50 years. There's the challenge of race, which is back at the top of our agenda, but kind of never leaves the agenda in the United States. It
Yeah.
comes up to the top, it moves down, it moves back, but it's an issue which just keeps challenging the country. Obviously, there's the pandemic, but
Oh
there are
yeah.
also other things, climate change and other risks that we face in this era that we are moving into, and that we face, I think, with somewhat damaged social foundations for dealing with them. And so there's the issue of how do we repair those?
Yeah, because definitely what I'm seeing, what's happening with that social issues, that's at least from my perspective, as part of the millennial generation and growing up with social media and technology, I'm seeing that a lot of these rifts and social conflicts are also stemming from what happens with social media, where these echo chambers form and whatnot.
Right. Well, I think they're made worse by social media and by the echo chambers. I would caution against thinking that's where they all come from.
Okay.
They may come from various kinds of problems that are unresolved in society, or ideologies and so forth. But the impact of social media is partly to encourage echo chambers, as you said, partly to give people freedom for a more aggressive rhetorical clash with each other that they wouldn't always do in person,
Mhm.
um, and partly to link up over long distances, to have a sense of critical mass. So, you may not have very many neo-Nazis in your neighborhood, but the one who's there can link up with others online in other places and have a sense of being a part of something bigger.
Yeah.
Add in hacking, and the challenges there. So there are a bunch of media effects, but I think media didn't create these issues all by itself. And there are previous examples of many of these deep divisions, like I was just saying around race.
Yeah. Okay, so the social media and technology, it more so kind of like is attributing to it. It's not the sole creation of it, but
Yeah,
it's
it's an
adding into it.
exacerbator in a sense.
Okay. Yeah, because something I definitely see a lot too with social media, especially when it pertains to things with race, ethnicity, things like that. That's where a lot of these echo chambers especially come up because of just how sensitive a topic it is. And I know Facebook, social media, it gives a platform to really give a voice to people that are victims of such abuses.
Yeah.
But I think now what we're seeing, especially like with Antifa, for example, and how they've been having the groups linked through Facebook and everything, that's leading to this radicalization of a mindset, if that makes
So
sense, or if I'm hitting on
yeah,
the
no,
point
that
there.
makes sense. I think there are multiple questions. One is, how do people get mobilized? And they use social media to get mobilized.
Hmm.
Another is, how does it change their attitudes, like sort of radicalizing, making more extreme, reshaping in that sense. It has to be said that it's not that social media only does bad things or only connects
Yeah,
bad people, right?
yeah,
It is a source of connections that works for lots of people, and good causes as well as bad. There is unfortunately some research evidence that falsehoods spread faster than truth and corrections of falsehoods,
hmm,
and they stick around longer. So it appears that the new media are not helping our ability to get to the truth of matters. Um,
yeah,
and
because
that's probably true on all sides of issues.
yeah, and what I see too, especially with that, because like with YouTubers, they use the clickbait algorithm to get that attention quickly. And what happens a lot that I see on Facebook, and I've even felt victim to it, where it's the rage bait, and I click and I just fall into it. But they only give you like a first headliner that depicts this whole kind of situation, and the rest of it, it's either just kind of filler, or if it's mixed with some kind of bias. And even if it's based off false information, they still roll with it. And like with a lot of mainstream media, there's a lack of accountability, where that false information and those false accusations has led to some detrimental effects on the livelihood of those individuals.
Oh, I think you're exactly right, Josh, on this. Let me just pull out 2 points from it. One is the shortened attention span, that often people read the headline and then they click on the next thing, right?
Mhm.
And so they think they've gotten the story, whatever it is, without going very deeply into it.
Right.
The second is that the combination of social media with available online resources often gives people the illusion of having done a lot of research,
Right.
right? Like, somebody sent me a link and I followed it. Then I went to 3 other websites. Now I know the real picture. I've thoroughly investigated the story. I've done my research. I know the truth. But maybe all of those websites were crap.
Yeah.
Maybe they were all ideologically biased. That it's not true that just going to 3 or 4 or 5 guarantees anything.
Yeah, and especially with the level of bias and misinformation that's going around now, it's very difficult to be able to mitigate and try to find the right actual information. So that's why usually whenever I have any kind of debate or argument with someone else discussing things like that, I try to stay close to the more factual information rather than jumping on that clickbait. Because I've fell victim to that a couple times, like for example, with scandals that opened up against the Obama administration, things with Kamala Harris, for example. So I've been victim to that. I know the, I wouldn't say maybe manipulation would be the right word, but the level of manipulation and and perception that goes with it, I would say. So I would fall into it, but that's why
Everybody
I'm
does. I
exactly.
mean, even the people who are pretty careful to try to be factual occasionally get fooled sometimes.
Mhm.
And, that can be not even words, it can be visual things. Like when there was a tsunami in Japan, there were a lot of visual images that were sort of faked, showing the wave bigger than it was and um, making it more dramatic. And, who knows? You're not there in Japan watching the wave. So it takes a fair amount
Yeah.
of effort to stay clear of the misinformation.